She dared him to prove he was rich now she's wearing his engagement ring asterisk. The morning rain painted streaks down the windows of Moonbeam Cafe as Emma Rodriguez hunched over her small corner table, carefully arranging handmade jewelry pieces. On a black velvet cloth, her dark eyes scanned the upscale coffee shop, cataloging potential customers who might appreciate her family heirloom collection. The rent notice in her backpack reminded her that desperate times called for creative solutions. Emma had mastered the art of survival through small deceptions. Nothing harmful, she told herself, just convincing wealthy strangers that her glass bead creations were precious family treasures. She targeted only those who could afford to lose a few $100s without missing a meal. Her gaze swept across the busy cafe, noting the usual suspects. A woman in designer clothes typing on an expensive laptop, a man checking his Rolex while sipping a $20 coffee drink. Then her eyes landed on someone unexpected. He sat alone in the furthest corner, wearing a faded gray sweater that had seen better days and jeans that looked like thrift store finds. His sandy brown hair was slightly tousled and wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose as he read a paperback novel. Everything about James Wellington screamed ordinary, middle class. Definitely not wealthy, but something made Emma look closer. There was an invisible confidence in his posture, the way he held his book, even how he sipped his simple black coffee. Most telling was how other customers unconsciously avoided his section, as if sensing an authority they couldn't quite identify. Emma made her decision. This man was trying very hard to look unremarkable, which meant he probably wasn't. She gathered her courage, picked up her coffee and most elaborate necklace, and approached his table with a practiced smile. "Excuse me," she said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "Would you mind if I sat here? Everywhere else seems taken." James looked up from his book, and Emma felt a small shock of recognition, though she'd never seen him before. His hazel eyes were intelligent and amused, as if he found something entertaining about her approach. "Please, go ahead," he said, his voice carrying an educated accent that didn't match his casual appearance. Emma sat down and immediately began her performance. She pulled out the necklace, a piece she'd crafted from checked glass beads and silver wire, and set it on the table with a troubled expression. "I'm having such difficulty pricing this piece," she said loud enough for him to hear. "My grandmother left me her jewelry collection, and I'm trying to figure out what everything is worth." James glanced at the necklace, and Emma saw his eyebrows raise slightly. "Perfect." She had his attention. "It's beautiful," he said politely. "Those look like sapphires." Emma's heart leaped. He'd taken the bait exactly as planned. "Do you really think so?" "I wasn't sure if they were real or just very convincing imitations. My grandmother always claimed they came from her travels in Burma during the 1950s. But you know how family stories can grow over time." She picked up the necklace and held it to catch the light, allowing the glass beads to sparkle convincingly. "A jeweler downtown offered me $300 for it, but I have a feeling it might be worth considerably more. What's your opinion?" James set down his book and studied her with those penetrating eyes. For a moment, Emma felt completely exposed, as if he could see straight through her carefully constructed performance. But then he smiled, such a genuine, warm expression that her story faltered. "I think," he said slowly, "that your grandmother would have been very proud of your creativity." Emma's mouth fell open. Had he just called out her lie? But his tone wasn't accusatory or angry. If anything, he sounded impressed. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I don't understand what you mean." James chuckled softly. "Those are beautiful glass beads, probably check crystal from the appearance. The wirework is excellent, very professional. Made this yourself, didn't you?" Caught completely off guard, Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. She started to stand, ready to make a quick exit. But James's next words stopped her cold. "Please, don't leave. I'd actually like to purchase it." Emma stared at him in shock. "But you know it's not real sapphires. It's still beautiful. You're clearly talented, and I appreciate fine craftsmanship when I encounter it." He pulled out a simple leather wallet that looked as modest as everything else about him.
"How much
would you like for it?" This wasn't how her cons usually proceeded. Emma found herself completely off balance. I usually sell them for $40 at the weekend market." James pulled out 2 crisp $100 bills and placed them on the table. How about 200? Consider it an investment in a promising artist. Emma's eyes widened. $200 would cover her rent with money left over for groceries. That's far too much, she protested, even as her practical side screamed to take the money and run. Not for something this well-crafted, James insisted, picking up the necklace to examine it more closely. The color combination is striking, and the way you've wrapped the wire around the larger beads creates beautiful texture and depth. Do you create jewelry full-time? Something about his genuine interest and unexpected kindness made Emma's usual walls crumble, instead of spinning. Another elaborate story? She found herself telling the truth for the first time in months. 3 weeks had passed since Emma's encounter with the mysterious James Wellington. She couldn't stop thinking about him. They'd exchanged numbers that day, and he'd been texting her regularly, asking about her art and sharing interesting articles about jewelry design. But something nagged at her, a persistent feeling that nothing about their meeting had been coincidental. Emma sat in her tiny studio apartment, laptop open, scrolling through search results. James Wellington, businessman, had yielded thousands of results, but none seemed to match the modestly dressed man from the coffee shop. She tried different combinations. James Wellington investments. James Wellington philanthropist even. James Wellington billionaire. Her heart stopped when she found it. The article was from a business magazine, featuring a grainy photo of a man in an expensive suit at some charity gala. The caption read, "Reclusive billionaire James Wellington, CEO of Wellington Enterprises, rarely makes public appearances. Even with the formal attire and professional photography, she recognized those intelligent hazel eyes." Emma's phone buzzed with a text from James. "Coffee tomorrow? Same place? Same time? My." She stared at the message, her mind racing. Why would a billionaire dress like a graduate student and hang around ordinary coffee shops? Why had he been so kind to her, so generous with someone trying to scam him? And most importantly, what did he want from her? The next morning, Emma arrived at Moonbeam Cafe 15 minutes early, choosing a table with a clear view of the entrance. When James walked in wearing the same type of casual clothes, she felt a mixture of anticipation and anger. He planned to maintain this charade. "You look upset," James said as he approached her table, carrying his usual black coffee. "Sit down," Emma said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "We need to talk." James raised an eyebrow, but complied, settling into the chair across from her. "Is everything all right?" Emma pulled out her phone and showed him the article she'd found. "Care to explain this? James Wellington, CEO of Wellington Enterprises, estimated net worth of $2.8 billion. For a moment, James said nothing, just stared at the screen. Then he looked up at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You've been researching me," he said simply. "Of course I have. You think I'm some naive artist who doesn't know how to use Google?" Emma's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. She lowered it to an angry whisper. "You've been lying to me for weeks, pretending to be some ordinary guy when you're actually one of the richest men in the country. What kind of game are you playing?" James leaned back in his chair, and for the first time since she'd met him, Emma saw the authority that his casual clothes had been hiding. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made her understand why other people instinctively gave him space. "I wasn't lying about anything important," he said. I never claimed to be poor or struggling. I just didn't announce my bank balance." "You let me think you were a regular person." "I am a regular person. I just happen to have more money than most regular people." Emma felt tears of frustration building. "Do you know how humiliating this is? I tried to scam you with fake jewelry and you've been laughing at me this whole time, probably thinking it's amusing to watch the poor artist play her little games." "Emma, no." James leaned forward, his voice gentle. "That's not what happened at all. Yes, I knew your necklace wasn't made of precious stones, but I also knew it was beautiful and that you're incredibly talented. I bought it because I wanted to support your art, not because I was entertained by your sales pitch. Then why the disguise? Why not just be honest about who you are?" James was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. "Because the moment people know I have money, everything changes. Suddenly, I'm not just James anymore. I'm an opportunity, a target, a prize to be won. Every conversation becomes about what I can do for someone. Every friendship becomes transactional. I dress like this because it's the only way I can have normal, human interactions. Emma studied his face, seeing something vulnerable there that she hadn't noticed before. What am I then? Another normal human interaction? I hoped you could be more than that, James said quietly. These past few weeks, talking with you, learning about your art, hearing your thoughts about life, it's been the most genuine connection I've had with someone in years. You see me as just James, not as James Wellington, the billionaire? That's incredibly rare and precious to me. Emma felt her anger wavering, replaced by confusion and something else she didn't want to name. But now I do know. So what happens now? James met her eyes directly. I guess that depends on you. Can you still see me as just James, or does the money change everything? Emma stared at him, this man who had shown her more kindness and respect. In 3 weeks than most people managed in months. Part of her wanted to run, to avoid the complications that came with caring about someone so far outside her world. But a larger part was curious about who he really was beneath both the casual clothes and the billions of dollars. I don't know, she said honestly. This is all pretty overwhelming. I understand, but Emma, I want you to know something. Money doesn't define me any more than your financial struggles define you. We're both just people trying to make meaningful connections in a complicated world. Emma felt something shift inside her, a dangerous softening toward this enigmatic man. Prove it, she said suddenly. Prove what? Prove that you're really as wealthy as that article claims. If we're going to have honesty between us, then I want complete honesty. Show me your world, James Wellington. I dare you. James studied her face for a long moment, and Emma saw something like relief in his eyes. All right, he said. But I warn you, once you see that world, there's no going back to pretending I'm just an ordinary guy. I'll take that risk. Then give me 1 week too. Arrange something appropriate. And Emma. Yes, hope you won't regret asking for this. Emma stood before her closet in despair, staring at the few decent dresses she owned. James had texted her an address and asked her to meet him there at 7, mentioning only that she should dress formally. She'd Googled the location and discovered it was the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, one of the most exclusive venues in the city. After an hour of trying on different combinations, she settled on a simple black dress she'd bought for job interviews, paired with the only heels she owned that didn't have scuff marks. Psst. Looking in the mirror, she felt like a child playing dress-up. The hotel lobby took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across marble floors. Elegantly dressed people moved through the space with practiced grace. Emma felt immediately out of place, acutely aware of her discount store dress and nervous energy. Emma. She turned to find James approaching, and her heart skipped a beat. Gone were the casual clothes and modest appearance. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that probably cost more than she made in 6 months, his hair styled impeccably, and even his glasses had been replaced with subtle contact lenses. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, sophisticated and devastatingly handsome. You look beautiful, he said, offering her his arm. Emma felt a flush creep up her neck. I feel completely underdressed. You're perfect, James assured her, leading her toward an elevator marked private. The charity gala is on the top floor. It's for the Children's Art Foundation, something I support annually. As the elevator rose, Emma's stomach churned with nerves. How many people will be there? About 200. Don't worry, most of them are more interested in being seen than in actually seeing anyone else. The elevator doors opened to reveal a glittering ballroom filled with the city's elite. Women in designer gowns worth more than Emma's annual rent mingled with men in expensive suits. Champagne glasses catching the light from massive chandeliers overhead. Emma felt James's hand on the small of her back, steadying her as they entered the room. Almost immediately, people began approaching them, greeting James with the kind of reverence usually reserved for royalty. James, wonderful to see you, gushed a woman dripping in diamonds. You simply must meet my daughter Charlotte. She's finished her master's in art history. Another time, perhaps, James replied smoothly. keeping Emma close to his side. "I'm here with someone very special tonight." As the evening progressed, Emma watched James navigate the social landscape with practiced ease, making polite conversation while subtly deflecting attempts to monopolize his attention. She noticed how people's eyes lit up when they saw him, how conversation shifted when he approached, how even the most powerful-looking individuals seemed to defer to him. "You're seeing it now, aren't you?" James murmured in her ear during a quiet moment. "This is my world. This is what I was trying to avoid by dressing down." Emma nodded, feeling overwhelmed by the display of wealth and power surrounding them. "I had no idea it was like this. Most people don't. They see the glamour and the luxury, but they don't see the isolation that comes with it. Everyone wants something from you, and genuine connection becomes nearly impossible." As if to prove his point, a distinguished older man approached them with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Wellington, just the man I wanted to see. I have a proposition that could make us both a lot of money." "Perhaps we could discuss business another time," James replied diplomatically. "Tonight is about supporting the Children's Foundation." The man's smile faltered slightly. Of course, but do call me. This opportunity won't wait forever." After he'd moved away, Emma looked up at James with new understanding. "This happens all the time, doesn't it? Every single day. Phone calls, emails, people showing up at my office with schemes and proposals and requests for money. It's exhausting." Emma felt a sudden surge of protectiveness toward this man who had shown her such kindness. Without thinking, she reached up and touched his face gently. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I never realized how lonely it must be." Something shifted. In James's expression, surprise giving way to something deeper and more vulnerable. "Emma." The moment was interrupted by an announcement that dinner was being served, but Emma felt something fundamental had changed between them. As James led her to their table, she found herself seeing him not as the intimidating billionaire, surrounded by luxury, but as the kind, intelligent man who had bought her jewelry and listened to her stories about art. Dinner was an elaborate affair with multiple courses, each more extravagant than the last. Emma tried to follow James's lead with the numerous forks and glasses, feeling like she was performing in a play where everyone else knew the script. "You're doing fine," James whispered, noticing her uncertainty. "I feel like I'm going to break something expensive just by breathing wrong," Emma confessed. James chuckled, the first genuine laugh she'd heard from him all evening. "I felt the same way at my first formal dinner. I was 19 and had just inherited the company. I spent the entire evening terrified I'd embarrass myself. It's hard to imagine you being intimidated by anything. Everyone's intimidated by something. I'm intimidated by the idea of losing the one person who's ever seen me as just James." Emma's breath caught at the intensity in his voice. Before she could respond, he stood and offered her his hand. "Would you like to get some air? There's a garden on this floor." Emma nodded, taking his hand and letting him lead her away from the crowded ballroom. They stepped onto a private terrace overlooking the city, the noise of the party fading behind them. The view was spectacular, city lights stretching to the horizon like fallen stars. But Emma found herself more captivated by James, who had loosened. His tie-in was leaning against the railing with a relieved expression. "Better?" he asked. "Much better. Though I have to admit, seeing you in your natural habitat is pretty impressive." James turned to face her fully. "That's not my natural habitat, Emma. It's a role I play because it's expected of me. This right. Here with you, this is the most natural I've felt in months." Emma felt her heart racing as he stepped closer. "James, I know this is complicated. I know my world is overwhelming and strange and probably frightening, but I need you to know that everything I've felt for you, everything we've shared, that's all been real. The money doesn't change how I feel about you." Emma looked up into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there. The hope and fear mingled together. "I believe you," she said softly. James cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Emma, I." She rose on her tiptoes and kissed him, cutting off whatever he'd been about to say. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. But then James pulled her closer, and it deepened into something hungry and desperate, as if they were both trying to pour weeks of longing and confusion and hope into this single moment. When they finally broke apart, Both breathing hard, Emma felt like the world had shifted around them. "Come home with me," James whispered against her forehead. "Please, I want to show you who I really am when all the pretense is stripped away." Emma looked into his eyes and saw the man who had bought her jewelry and listened to her dreams. The same man who commanded rooms full of powerful people but felt lonely despite his wealth. She saw someone worth taking a risk on. "Yes," she whispered back and felt his whole body relax with relief. Emma woke slowly, consciousness creeping in like dawn light through unfamiliar windows. The bed beneath her was impossibly soft, the sheets finer than anything she'd ever touched. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was, then the events of the previous night came rushing back in a wave of sensation and emotion. She turned her head to find James already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching her with an expression of tender concern. "Good morning," he said softly, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from her face. "Good morning," Emma replied, suddenly acutely aware of her nakedness beneath the silk sheets. Last night, caught up in the intensity of their connection, everything had felt natural and right. In the clear light of day, doubt began creeping in. "How are you feeling?" James asked. And something in his tone told her he was asking about more than just her physical comfort. Emma sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest, and looked around the bedroom for the first time. It was enormous, larger than her entire apartment. With floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, original artwork hung on the walls, pieces she recognized from art history textbooks. And everything from the furniture to the lighting spoke of wealth beyond her comprehension. Overwhelmed, she admitted honestly. James sat up as well, concern creasing his features. "Emma, if you're having regrets." "It's not regrets exactly," Emma said, trying to organize her tumultuous thoughts. "It's just, this is your bedroom. James, this is your life. Look at this place." She gestured around the opulent room. "I live in a studio apartment where I can touch all four walls without moving from the center. My idea of luxury is buying name-brand cereal instead of generic. How can we possibly make this work?" James was quiet for a moment, then he got out of bed, pulling on a robe and moving to sit in a chair facing her. Emma noticed he deliberately put distance between them, and something about that small gesture made her chest tighten. "Can I tell you something?" he said finally. "This bedroom, this penthouse, all of it, it's beautiful, but it's also the loneliest place I've ever lived. I've had women in this bed before, Emma, but they were here for what I could give them, not for who I am. Last night was the first time I've ever brought someone here who wanted me, not my bank account." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. But how do I know that about myself? How do I know I'm not just dazzled by all this wealth and luxury? Maybe I'm not as different from those other women as I want to believe." James stood and moved to his dresser, pulling out something that made Emma's breath catch. It was the necklace she'd made, the one he'd bought from her that first day in the coffee shop. He'd had it professionally mounted in a shadow box with museum-quality lighting. "This," he said, holding it up, "this is why I know you're different." "Do you know what this represents to me?" Emma shook her head, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. "It represents the first time in my adult life that someone created something beautiful specifically to share with the world, not to get something from me. When you made this necklace, you had no idea who I was or what I was worth. You made it because you're an artist, because you have something inside you that needs to create beauty." He set the shadow box on the bedside table and sat on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain the distance between them. "Emma, I've been wealthy my entire adult life. I've learned to recognize the signs when someone is interested in my money. Rather than me, it's the way their eyes light up when they see expensive things, how they steer conversations toward what I can do for them, how they become possessive and demanding once they think they have access to my resources." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "You've done none of those things. Even now, after seeing my world, your first instinct isn't to figure out how to benefit from it. You're worried about whether you belong here, whether your feelings are pure. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Emma felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "But I'm scared, James. I'm scared that I'll lose myself in all this. I'm scared that people will look at me and think I'm just another gold digger. I'm scared that you'll get tired of having to explain my background to your fancy friends. James moved closer, cupping her face in his hands. And I'm scared that you'll decide I'm not worth the complications that come with my life. I'm scared that the pressure and scrutiny will drive you away. I'm scared that I'll lose the first person who's ever made me feel truly seen. They looked at each other for a long moment, both vulnerable and uncertain. So what do we do? Emma whispered. We try. James said simply. Take it one day at a time and we try to figure out how to blend our worlds without losing ourselves. In the process, Emma nodded slowly. I'd like that. But James, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't try to rescue me. I know you want to help with my financial struggles, and I appreciate that impulse, but I need to know that I can stand on my own. I need to know that what we build together is based on partnership, not dependence. James smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him that morning. I promise, though I reserve the right to buy your artwork at fair market prices. Emma laughed despite her tears. Deal. James leaned forward and kissed her softly, a kiss full of promise and hope. When they separated, he rested his forehead against hers. Stay for breakfast? He asked. I make excellent coffee, and the view from the kitchen is even better than from here. Emma looked around the opulent bedroom one more time, then back at James's hopeful face. Despite all her fears and uncertainties, she felt something settling into place inside her chest. I'd love to, she said, and meant it. As James went to start coffee, Emma wrapped herself in one of his robes and stood at the window, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there was her tiny apartment, her art supplies, her simple life. But here, in this moment, she felt the possibility of something bigger. Something that could encompass both worlds if they were brave enough to try. She thought about the necklace in its shadow box. How James treasured something she'd made with her own hands more than all the expensive art surrounding them. Maybe that was the key to making this work. Remembering that the most valuable things couldn't be bought, only freely given. 6 months later, Emma stood in her new art studio, a converted warehouse space that James had helped her find but that she was paying for with earnings from her rapidly growing jewelry business. The morning sun streamed through skylights, illuminating works in progress scattered across several tables. Her pieces had evolved, incorporating techniques she'd learned from master artisans James had introduced her to. But still maintaining the authentic voice that had first caught his attention, her phone buzzed with a text from James. Dinner tonight? I have something special planned. Emma smiled, typing back. Always yes to dinner with you. What's the occasion? You'll see? Wear something comfortable for walking. Emma raised an eyebrow at the cryptic message, but didn't press for details. Over the past months, she'd learned that James enjoyed planning surprises, and they were always thoughtful and meaningful rather than ostentatious displays of wealth. Their relationship had found its rhythm through careful negotiation and constant communication. James had kept his promise not to rescue her financially, though he'd connected her with gallery owners and collectors who appreciated her work. Emma had learned to navigate his world without losing herself, attending charity functions and business dinners while maintaining her own artistic identity. That evening, James picked her up in his car, but instead of heading to a restaurant, he drove toward the part of the city where they'd first met. Are we going to Moonbeam Cafe? Emma asked, recognizing the familiar streets. Close, James said, pulling into a parking spot, but not exactly. He led her down a tree-lined street Emma had never explored, past charming brownstones and small shops, until they stopped in front of a narrow building with large windows and a for-lease sign. What are we looking at? Emma asked, though something in James's expression made her heart start racing. Instead of answering, James pulled out a set of keys and unlocked the front door. Inside was a beautiful space with exposed brick walls, polished concrete floors, and enormous windows that would provide perfect natural light. James, what is this? It's a gallery space, he said, his voice carefully neutral. The owner is a friend of mine, and he's been having trouble finding the right tenant. Someone who understands art, who could curate shows that bring beauty to the neighborhood rather than just chasing trends. Emma walked through the space, her mind automatically envisioning how artwork could be displayed, where reception areas could be set up, how the lighting could be optimized. It was perfect, absolutely perfect, and probably completely beyond her budget. "It's beautiful," she said carefully. "But James, I can't afford something like this." "Actually, you can," James said, pulling a folder from his jacket. "I've run the numbers. With your jewelry sales and the commission you'd make from gallery shows, you could cover the rent and still have money left over for living expenses." Emma took the folder, looking at spreadsheets that showed projected income and expenses. The numbers were optimistic, but not unrealistic, based on the trajectory her career had taken over the past months. "You've really thought this through," she said, still processing the possibilities. "Emma, I've watched you over these past months, seen how talented and dedicated you are. You're ready for this step. The question is whether you want to take it." Emma looked around the space again, imagining her own artwork on the walls, alongside pieces from other artists she could support and promote.
Ow.
It was everything she'd dreamed of, but never dared hope for. "Why are you doing this?" she asked James. Was quiet for a moment, then he moved to stand directly in front of her. "Because 6 months ago you dared me to prove I was wealthy. Tonight I want to dare you to prove something too." Emma's breath caught. "What?" Instead of answering immediately, James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's heart stopped. "Emma Rodriguez," he said, dropping to one knee in the middle of the empty gallery space. "I want to dare you to prove that two people from completely different worlds can build something beautiful together." He opened the box to reveal a ring unlike anything Emma had ever seen. It wasn't a traditional diamond solitaire, but rather a stunning piece that incorporated elements of her own artistic style. The center stone was surrounded by intricate metalwork. That reminded her of her jewelry designs, and she realized with shock that he'd had it custom-made to reflect her aesthetic. "James," she whispered, tears already starting to fall. I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this might not work. But Emma, you've changed everything about how I see the world. You've shown me that genuine connection. It's possible that someone can love me for who I am rather than what I have. You've made me want to be worthy of the kind of love you offer freely." Emma felt overwhelmed, her mind racing between the proposal, the gallery, and the magnitude of what he was offering. "I can't," she said suddenly, and James's face fell. "Can't take the gallery and the proposal at the same time. It's too much, and I need to know that you're proposing to me, not trying to solve my career problems." James looked stricken. "That's not what this is. The gallery isn't contingent on your answer. Even if you say no to marrying me, the opportunity is still there because you've earned it. But can't you see how it looks? How it makes me question my own motivations?" James slowly stood up, the ring box still open in his hand. "What if I told you I bought this ring 3 months ago, long before I found the gallery space?" Emma's eyes widened. "Did you?" "I did. I knew I wanted to marry you, but I was waiting for the right moment, the right way to ask. When I found this space, I thought it would be perfect to propose here, in a place that represents your future as an artist. But you're right, it muddles things." James closed the ring box and put it back in his pocket. Emma felt panic rise in her chest. "What are you doing?" "Taking the gallery out of the equation," James said. "Let's leave. We'll go have dinner, forget about this space, and I'll propose to you properly, somewhere that's just about us." Emma looked around the gallery one more time, then back at James's face. She saw love there, and respect, and the kind of understanding that had drawn her to him from the beginning. "James, take the ring back out. Emma, ... take it out. Ask me again." James hesitated, then slowly pulled the box from his pocket and opened it again. "Are you sure?" Emma stepped closer to him, close enough to see the hope and fear battling in his eyes. "James Wellington, 6 months ago, I was a struggling artist, trying to survive by selling fake jewelry to wealthy strangers. You saw through my con, but you also saw something in me worth believing in. You've supported my dreams without trying to control them, challenged me to grow without trying to change me, and loved me without trying to possess me." She reached out and touched his face gently. So yes, I dare to believe that two people from different worlds can build something beautiful together. And my answer is yes. James's face broke into the most radiant smile she'd ever seen as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, just like everything else about their unlikely love story.